Episode 11A, Nothing But the Tooth. This is another episode predicated on the main characters just being really dumb. Pooh finds a tooth, Piglet thinks it must be one Pooh lost, and Rabbit decides that this is Pooh's sweet tooth, and that without it, Pooh won't be able to eat honey. Keep in mind, Pooh doesn't even have teeth, something Christopher Robin explicitly points out later. I don't know why Rabbit would be invested in restoring Pooh's supposedly lost ability to eat honey. You'd think he'd be stoked now that Pooh won't be borrowing from him anymore. Oh well. So Rabbit tries to reattach the tooth with string. Obviously this wasn't going to work, but I at least get the logic here. But then Rabbit plants the tooth in his garden to watch it grow. I have no idea how this is supposed to be related to fixing Pooh's problem. Rabbit thinks it'll, grow into a really big tooth? Grow a bush and sprout more sweet teeth? I mean, how does that... what the
Oh, bother.
fuck are you thinking, Rabbit? Okay, whatever. He buries the tooth, and it falls into Gopher's tunnels, where it gets stolen by these very Disney-looking rats called the pack rats, who steal and hoard stuff and leave walnuts behind as payment, I guess. The pack rats seem pretty fine with stealing and later cheating. I don't know why they bother with the walnuts, honestly, but they do. Since Gopher's back this episode, I guess I should mention that in the comments on my last video, Julia Mavriotti pointed out that Gophers only live in North America, and that the character of Gopher wasn't in any of the original Pooh stories by Milne, but was a new addition by Disney to the Poohniverse. So I guess I didn't need to do all that super sleuthing just to figure out that, yeah, Disney Pooh takes place in the United States. Or I guess Canada, or maybe Mexico, but come on, it's definitely the USA. You know it's true. So there's some shenanigans. Owl gets the tooth and uses it as a doorbell for some reason. The pack rats steal it back, but Piglet ends up in their stealin' satchel and gets carried off. So Pooh et al. Follow the pack rats to their lair, where they're putting the tooth in this set of toy teeth to complete the set, I guess. Yep, this is what they wanted the tooth for. Okay, sure. So the rats see this watch with no hands that Pooh has, and they want it, so Pooh says he'll trade it for the tooth, and they challenge him to a stupid Gollum-esque riddle game where he has to guess where the tooth is, and then they'll trade it, but if he guesses wrong, then they just get the watch for nothing. It's stupid. The rats already saw the tooth doesn't fit in their toy teeth, so what do they even want it for anymore? Why not just trade it back, since they clearly do want the watch? And the rat is obviously holding his hands behind his back. I mean, I thought I was meant to know he had the tooth behind there, but Pooh does this callback thing to when Piglet guessed which hand the tooth was in earlier. Last place first, Piglet says. So Pooh guesses it's behind the rat, and it's like he cleverly outsmarted them, but where else would it be? Also, the gang should have just started trashing the place and wrecking
Oh, bother.
until they got the tooth back. These rats are deplorable miscreants, and they'd be powerless to stop them. Also, once they get the tooth back, it's problem solved, even though the tooth still isn't back in Pooh's mouth, which I thought was the whole problem in the first place. This one's really dumb. I didn't hate it when I was watching it, but actually thinking about it later, I got sort of annoyed with how nonsensical it all is. Episode 11B, Gone with the Wind. Okay, so this one starts out with Piglet being blown around in the wind for a while because he's a very small animal and susceptible to such minor perils. But he somehow gets back to his house and says he's not going back out into the wind again. So, a perfectly reasonable decision. The next part is weird because Pooh, Rabbit, and Tigger all try and coax Piglet to come out of his house, even though it's still windy. Why do they think Piglet's being unreasonable? Why are they trying to get Piglet to go out, even though the danger's still present? I mean, they saw what happened. What the
Oh, bother.
guys? Just leave him alone. I don't know, I got really annoyed with them over this. Later, Piglet does decide he's never leaving his house again, even when the wind dies down. But at this point, they're just being like, come on, Piglet. Yeah, conditions out there are potentially life-threatening for you, but so what? Get out there. Don't be a
Oh, bother.
Piglet. Ugh, I hate it. They try to tunnel under his house after a while, and at this point it's no longer windy, and I honestly thought they were going to get into his house and find that he was already out because, he was just understandably scared of the wind. Nothing to get freaked out about, guys. Calm down. Mind your own business. Alright, well, it does turn out that yeah, Piglet has decided to never come out again. It's just that he never actually makes that clear, and they just sort of assume it to be the case. It's a weird oversight in the way the story's told, I think. So Pooh says they have to throw Piglet a staying inside party. In other words, a goodbye, we're never going to see you again because you've decided you're never leaving your house party. Look at those eyes. That's the face of a bear who's just lost his best friend, if ever I've seen one. Apparently Piglet's not just staying inside, he's staying specifically under his chair. Seems like a weird leap. I mean, as long as you're inside, the wind can't get you, right? Like, why under the chair exactly? Whatever. They say goodbye at the end of the party, and it's pretty sad. I guess in addition to Piglet never coming out again, they're also never coming back here. If Piglet won't leave his house, he's dead to them. Fair enough. So then it's, I don't know, next day maybe, and everyone's having a picnic on this hill visible from Piglet's house. This picnic, I don't know, it stood out to me. I never got the feeling in any of the other episodes that they really do stuff like this, normally. Seems like most of the time everyone in the 100-acre wood just kind of chills in their own house. Maybe goes knocking on someone else's door if they're bored. I don't think they usually all go just like picnicking together. Was this like a planned event? Who organizes events like this? Or maybe they did this picnic in like a weird attempt to include Piglet by all having a good time together in a place where he can see but not participate. So we cut to later on and it's windier than ever. Piglet's safe in his house, but he sees Pooh getting blown off a cliff. Oh no, the hero scarf! So many memories! So he grabs this thing and flies out to save him. I don't know, this episode really seems to think it has a moral about overcoming fear, but all I learned is, don't go outside in deadly weather conditions.
Oh, bother.
For fuck's sake. Episode 12, Paw and Order. Alright, so guess what? We got ourselves a framing device. This episode's presented as a play being put on by the toys, apparently written by Christopher Robin. I actually found myself laughing at a couple points in this one when the play within a play aspect rears its head. The way it's handled is kind of unusual. The characters will break the in-universe fourth wall, but the show never brings us out of the reality of the play's story. It's hard to explain, so I'll just give you an example. In this scene, the toys get a note from the villain, but they can't read, so they ask Christopher Robin, who isn't a character in the play, but the director, for help. Now, the way I'd expect this to go would be for the show to cut to a shot of the stage, like suddenly we see from outside the play's world and we see it's all just props and a crudely painted backdrop, and Christopher Robin would take the note off stage, read it, and then hand it back, and then we'd get a cut back into the world of the play and things would continue as though that little hiccup never happened. But instead, we never leave the play's diegesis. Christopher Robin just walks into the scene and reads the note for them. Then he reassures Piglet that, yeah, don't worry, the bad guy loses in the end, so don't worry about it. Just go have the big climactic final showdown. It'll be fine, I promise. So Christopher Robin's just in the scene now, and that's just how it is. And I just found this angle really entertaining. It's like the play we're seeing is the play not as it was written, but as it was performed, with the actors making mistakes and the director walking on stage, and all that stuff becomes part of the play itself, not a digression from it. Really makes you think, like about art and all that.
Oh, bother.
Alright, so in the story of the play itself, it's the Old West or whatever, and Piglet gets made sheriff of this random town because the old sheriff ran away because he was scared of these horse thieves. That's horse thieves, not horse thieves, as in they're horses who steal things. The horse thieves are led by this absolute unit named Nasty Jack, who's the best. Dude just wants to have a good time with his buddies, eating banana splits and drinking root beers. Nasty Jack says that since Piglet's the sheriff, that means he's gotta kick his
Oh, bother.
because that's just how these things work. He wouldn't have to if Piglet weren't sheriff, but Piglet can't get the badge off, so there's no escaping his grisly fate. It's worth mentioning that Piglet doesn't seem to be participating willingly in the play and tries to get out of it rather than face Nasty Jack at a few points, including here when he tries to take the badge off, but he's incompetent to the point of farce. Imagine being such a coward that you're too scared to even pretend to face danger. Absolutely disgusting. Anyway, Nasty Jack bullies Rabbit and Tigger mercilessly until the masked bear shows up and they have an ice cream shootout that Nasty Jack loses due to player piano malfunction. So Nasty Jack lays a trap to capture the masked bear and tells Piglet to meet him at sundown for a showdown. I haven't mentioned it till now, but another great thing about the play structure is Owl and Gopher, who are like the musical chorus. They're awesome. They basically sing the praises of whoever seems to have the upper hand at any given moment. Like, early on they sing to Piglet about how Nasty Jack is unbeatable and how they'll never escape his wrath. But then when the Masked Bear starts his ice cream shootout, they start singing about how tough the Masked Bear is, until he runs out of ammo and then they bolt. Anyway, here at the end, they finally intervene in the plot and set the Masked Bear free, sort of. But the play goes off script, I guess, because the Masked Bear fails to stop Nasty Jack. So Piglet's doomed, but just by sheer luck, his badge falls off right in the nick of time, so Nasty Jack doesn't need to trounce him after all. But Jack doesn't know what to do now that there's no sheriff to fight, so Piglet says maybe Jack should just go ahead and be sheriff. And Jack's like, hey yeah, cool. And so this hardened criminal and savage bully becomes the highest authority in the land, and everyone's happy and loves him forever. He's all about bullying in the name of the law now. This episode rules. Episode 13A, Honey for a Bunny. So Rabbit's doing some spring cleaning and decides to get rid of this bookend, which he seems weirdly attached to. But bookends come in pairs and he's missing the other one, so out it goes. It really feels like there's some unspoken history behind this bookend, considering how hard it is for Rabbit to part with it. Or maybe extreme sentimentality is just the status quo in the 100-Acre Wood. Anyway, after he dumps it, Roo picks it up, who trades it to Piglet, who gives it to Pooh, and Rabbit sees it at Pooh's house and thinks it's the second bookend that he thought he lost. Pooh's hesitant to trade away a gift from Piglet, but Rabbit, invested as he is in pretending to be literate, is desperate for something to hold his sweet, sweet books up and offers Pooh 5 jars of honey for it, which Pooh can't resist. But Rabbit only has 4 jars, so most of the episode becomes Rabbit torture as he tries and fails to get honey from a beehive. Rabbit really is the Squidward of New Adventures, only way less deserving of the punishment he gets. Squidward's often outright malicious in addition to being arrogant, but Rabbit's worst crime is usually just overestimating his own abilities. In this episode, he doesn't even do anything bad, he just makes an honest mistake. The tone of New Adventures is also a lot less overtly silly than SpongeBob, so the way it punishes Rabbit in episodes like this actually comes off as a lot more mean-spirited. Well, I say Rabbit doesn't do anything bad. There's a moment early on where it seems like Rabbit is doing something bad, only he isn't. When he's cleaning, Tigger shows up and is making even more of a mess, and Rabbit tries to get rid of him by giving him this boomerang. Now, he smiles here as though he's thinking, aha, Tigger, that rube, will throw this boomerang, only to have it return, clobbering him. That'll teach him a thing or two. Only he can't actually be thinking that, because he doesn't know what the boomerang is. A moment ago he called it a bent stick. So the evil scheme Rabbit must be grinning about here is apparently just to get rid of Tigger by giving him a gift that he doesn't think is worth anything. Devilish. Anyway, we get confirmation from Rabbit that he doesn't gather his own honey, as this seems to be the first time he's trying it. No comment from him on where he actually does get his honey, though. So after a lot of attempts to get the beehive down, I particularly enjoyed this one where Tigger tries to do the dangerous part and fails, Rabbit does get the honey and trades the 5 pots to Pooh for the bookend, only to realize it's the same one he threw away. Now, I don't understand why the bookend was so important to Rabbit in the first place, but I do understand why it would be now, since he went through hell to get it back from Pooh. So the other animals do him a solid and make him another one to complete the pair, and it's nice. And then we get this comedy sting at the end where the boomerang flies back into his house and we hear a crash. I'm not sure if we're supposed to assume it's broken one or both of the bookends. I guess it's up to viewer interpretation. I choose to believe it doesn't break them because this episode's been too mean to Rabbit already. Alright, that's gonna do it for this week's look back at New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. 4 episodes in the can. Pretty good. Respectable clip. Thank you to everyone whose name is scrolling past the screen right now, all of whom are donating $5 a month or more on Patreon. Thank you especially to Crack, Chelsea, Bub Bob, Ash Vampire, David, and Matthew, all of whom are donating at the higher tier of $25 or more a month on Patreon. Thank you very much. You guys let me spend my time doing this dumb stuff. Hope you enjoy it. Note about Patreon. I got an email this month from them saying, "Hey, sorry we messed up, and your pledges might take a while to process." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine." And then a bunch of patrons kind of just blipped off there. There was no like unpledged message. They just kind of like blipped off, like they got card declined, which happens sometimes. But there were a few. There were more than usual this month, and I think maybe Patreon just messed up and it was a technical issue, which is a little concerning. So if you're a patron, you might want to check if your card maybe got declined, or if Patreon did something happen there. If you're still active as a patron, if you would like to be, or if you are not a patron, consider pledging now, because my numbers are down. Oh no, my numbers are down. I gotta watch the numbers. My numbers are down. I'm sweating it, boys. Okay. All right. Enough. That's it. Thank you again. See you next week.